Hey there, car peeps in the universe. Welcome back to Jodo Garage, where we continue to continue. Today we're going to be looking at some of the framing that needs to go from this to the 22 Mach 1 chassis. The old Mustangs were a lot smaller than the new Mustangs. If you ever seen side by side, you can clearly see how narrow they are and how much shorter as well. So the one thing that we're going to be looking at today is how much do we need to cut out of the chassis for this to fit. Now, one of the measurements that's kind of key, if you look at the original floor pan from the 67, 68 Mustang, the distance between this and this flange is about 55 to 55 and a quarter inch. So I've set these up at about that width, and then I put in the cross brace here and the cross brace here. Now, it's not completely dialed in, it's not 100%. However, it gives me some good indicators as to where to make the cuts and where to leave material. What I don't want to do is start cutting and coming to the realization that I cut too much. So we want to be deliberate about this. One of the inspirations for this build, for full transparency, is Chris at B is for Build with his team. They did one of these conversions, made a very nice car, and that made me sell my 65 Daytona Cobra replica to venture onto this project. So Chris, thanks for the inspiration. And yeah, now we'll have to start doing some measuring on this and that and see what we need to cut, where we need to cut, and how we need to cut it. Things are never easy, of course, as usual, but that's why we do these things, because we love a challenge. When you look at this panel here, which is the front end of the driver's side, there's the door opening right there. This is where the hinges mount, and this is the panel that goes into the engine bay. So in order to get this car narrower, we have to set the sill of this on top of the sill here, which means we also have to remove this black plastic piece yet, and then we have to cut off this back plate all the way down and over, and then a part of this will have to come off as well, which then means that when this is out of the way, this internal upright, which is then on the outside, the front of the door opening, that is going to wrap around the edge here. So that means all this is in the way, all of this is in the way. That also means that we have to cut more of this. Now, these pieces come with a wheel well. However, I'm going to be running not this wheel, but at least a 19-inch wheel. So I want to retain as much as possible use of the wheel well, which means I'm going to have to cut these wheel wells out of this piece in order to make room, so this piece will go over top of the wheel well here. One thing I know about this is 3 little screws hold the inner and the outer wheel tub in place onto the frame. So I just took these 3 screws out, and that got rid of the wheel tub. So that makes life a lot easier trying to fit stuff. And yeah, maybe you can even sell these to somebody that needs new wheel tubs that is doing a restoration. So that is sitting on 2 jacks next to the car, but at approximately the height of where it would be sitting, as if the bottom of the sill was sitting on the pinch weld of the 2022 car. So what are we seeing? Well, this is where we'll have to do some surgery to make this go into the cowl area. This whole cowl area has to be opened up anyway. Then we see here, as mentioned, this panel needs to be taken off, probably up to here somewhere. Just go down and out, and then I have to see how far we want to go with that bump out and how we want to cut that. In here you can see that this, I mean, it's got to go back just a hair because the inside of this panel needs to go somewhere over here. I do believe the pinch weld here gets cut off for the purpose of sinking that in. But then over here you can see that the back end of the sill is pretty close, a little bit short on the edge of the wheel opening. So that's all good stuff. Obviously, to be able to make this go in, we're also going to have to do some surgery on the B-pillar here, take that out a little bit further. There's a ground there that needs to come off. On both sides there's another one over there that will need to come out and re-grounded at a different spot. And we also still need to take that whole contraption out in order to make this all fit.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Sometimes it's not all about the build, sometimes it's also about the tools to build the build. So knowing that we have to do a lot of spot welds, I bought this hole punch. I had a different hole punch right here. Not a bad one, works well. It's a smaller hole, and the depth of the where you can cut here is very shallow. I did it on the front frame rail, but I wasn't really happy with the holes I was getting in the spot they were getting in. So saw this online, and yeah, basically bought me one of these. So this has an 8mm or 5/16 hole that it punches from there, and an adjustable depth. So let's check that out real quick. Comes with an Allen wrench to set the depth, and it also comes with a connector for the air compressor. However, this is not the right size for me, so I'll just have to put one on my own. But fairly simple adjustment. Just loosen this up, and now I can set the depth on both sides, of course. Now I can set the depth at any depth that I want from where the striking hole is right here. So I can really take a measurement and make it as precise as I want and as deep as I want, up to about, give or take, 2 inches or so. So this will be a good tool that you're probably going to see popping up in some of the future videos as we're starting to put body panels on the car. One of the things that's going to help with making those cuts, hopefully, will be this. A plasma cutter from Arc Captain. Now, Arc Captain is a newer brand on the market. They've been pretty aggressive in marketing, and they've sent a whole bunch of units out to YouTubers for them to try and give a review online. It's also one of the reasons that I started watching that, and everybody seems to be very impressed with the capabilities of both this unit and the MiG 200, which I also bought. This was a combination package that they offered around Christmas time. Unfortunately, my channel does not have enough subscribers yet, hint hint, for me to get free stuff, but you know, I figured, you know, to get a little bit updated equipment in doing a build like this is always handy to have. And so let's dig in and see what we got in the box. First thing that we see is the actual torch. And then we have the negative clamp. We got some air hose with clamps, worm drive clamps. What looks to be a carrying strap. The unit is pretty small, so you can sort of carry it with you, I suppose. And then the unit itself. So the cord comes with a 240 plug, a 220 plug, with a conversion to 110. So you can run it on either. Obviously with the higher voltage, you can run higher amperage and therefore cut thicker steel. So what we have on the front here is a small display, operation mode, preferences, and a dial. So it's all pretty simple, which is nice. Can't really mess it up. And then on the back of the unit, we have a pressure dial with a regulator for the air inlet and a filter of sorts, and then the on-off switch and the fan. Hopefully this will be a good tool to add to the arsenal that I have, and will make the job a little bit easier during the course of this build. I do need to get a dryer for my air compressor before I can use this tool, so I don't have issues with water getting inside the unit and therefore wreaking havoc on the equipment. All in all, still excited to try this out sometime soon. A few more things showed up. The drip rails, tailor buckets, and the trim for the drip rails. Today we're going to focus on taking apart this taillight. This is one of the original lights from the car. As you can see, I already had damage here. This front lens is removable, not easily, but removable. Since I'm not going to be reusing any of the externals of these lights, I don't really care how it comes out. So one of the things I'd like to retain is this part. So I might make a cut out of this, so I have the connection for the harness for the car. Got a little nut here that needs to come out, and then the easiest part for this whole adventure is this flap here. It just comes out with a couple of these, not reusable. They'll go in the garbage. Got a 7mm nut driver here for this little screw. Take that out. There's actually a connection to the reflector on the inside of the light for that. The light I sort of already took off, so it gave me some learnings. I'll have to pry the lens part of the shell. You see it's starting to come apart here on this side, so we just have to work our way around, keep that going. so it is basically sort of joined together there on the edges. So it is possible to get that lens out by itself if you needed to replace it, but that's not what we're here to do. Okay, when we then look at the internals, it exposes 2, 4, 6 screws that need to come out in order to get the reflector part loose. Okay, once you have those loose, it's sort of careful wiggling of the reflector, a little prying and wiggling to get that out of its housing. That little 7mm screws that we took out was on this opposite end. Now you can see it's coming loose. There's the electrical wiring connector right there. We're gonna be removing, and then we've got the reflector piece, 3 lights, connector, and here's the sequential taillight brain, if you will. So I'm gonna remove this part of the casing with an oscillating tool to retain this, and like I said, the stock function hopefully of this part. We'll have to see if we can integrate that into the stock 67 Mustang Light. I'm not sure if that's possible, but we'll give it a try. Do an approximate line of where we're not going to be hitting the circuit board. We'll take the oscillating tool and punch through it and get to work. And there we go, circuit board plugged, and as mentioned, we'll see how we work that into the 67 taillight, but at least we have it if we need it, and we can get rid of the rest of the taillight. Here are the guts of the taillights, and these are the LED strips for the different 3 bars. These are too big to fit in the taillight pod of the 67, 68 Mustang. So I started with this one, where you can see the angle pieces here are no longer there. I'm guessing, hoping, gambling that when you look at these LED strips, you can see there's lines that divide the actual LED lights, and I'm hoping that by breaking the LED off on the scribe mark, that the rest will still work. You just take the one off that you don't want. So this width will work, that width doesn't work. So we're gonna do this one and that one as well, and then we're gonna hook it back up to the car and see if I ruined it or that it was a genius move. So what I found easiest is, a little bit hard to see in the light, but is to get a knife and kind of score on the line that's already there, sort of enhance that score line. Because by enhancing the score line, it will break easier. How easy is that? That's to see, but you can see the top one has a more defined score line now than the other ones. I'll do that with the other end as well. what I found is if I put a screwdriver underneath it, get a pair of needle nose, then I can get that underneath there, line the beak up with the score line, and then break it off. Comes off pretty clean. So let's see if we can do that with the other. So now that we got all three of them done, we can hook it back up to the car and see if what we're trying to do here actually works. And here's the learning out of that. That side still works, that hasn't been touched, and this side does not work anymore. So there's got to be some kind of return circuitry that's on the edges that is now not allowing the electricity to flow. Everything's hooked up normally, but it's not working. So that is a test and trial that failed.